So today we're talking about true grit. And what do I mean by that? You got to have true grit to date yourself. But it's the best dating you can do, especially if you're looking for somebody else. Because if you don't know how to date yourself, how's somebody else going to know how to do it? So let's just chat about 3 things you need to consider when you're dating yourself. So the first thing you want to think about is, how well do you know yourself? When I lived with that man for 15 years and others before him, I got used to being around them and making choices based on what would be easiest for everybody. And it kind of is like that movie. I'm not sure if you watch rom-coms or not, but in Runaway Bride, one of the questions going through the movie, one of the themes, is that she's so codependent on her man of the hour that she doesn't know what kind of eggs she likes. When she was with husband number 1 that she ran away from, or fiance number 1 that she ran away from, it was Eggs Benedict. And the next man she ran away from, it was scrambled with chives, or whatever it was. Kind of found myself having some of that in my history, and some of it in recent history, like realizing how many compromises I made just to keep the peace in my relationship. And now that I'm on my own, I'm rediscovering those things. Also, the other thing that affects how well you know yourself is how well do you know the things you've been trained to do growing up in your family, in your early years. For example, just recently I tried black coffee. Until then, I had black coffee with cream my whole life. The first time I had coffee, it was black coffee with cream, and it was always, the best was half and half, and then I cut down to 2% milk. That wasn't as good, but it was always white coffee. And then I had black coffee and found out I really enjoyed it and thought, oh my gosh, I've been carrying creamers with me when I travel. I've had to make do when people didn't have extra cream and sugar for coffees. And here I liked it all along, but I never knew because that was what my mother did. And so I modeled her and never questioned it. Another thing that I do that I never questioned really is Saturday mornings. It was a family tradition to get up and clean the house and have some other kind of work project to bond together over. Maybe detail the cars, clean the garage, clean the basement, move the wood pile from the back of the yard to the front of the yard, up by the house, move the wood pile back to the back of the yard. It was always something, and we did it as a family. So when I moved here and I didn't have anybody around, I found myself cleaning on Saturday mornings, but something was missing. And it was that communion, it was that community around me. So, and that's kind of who wants to spend their Saturday mornings cleaning? What kind of weird family did I grow up in? We all grew up with a little bit of weirdness. It's all good. So, that's one thing to think of is what habits. One that I'm dealing with right now that I just recently recognized is that I am not a continual subscriber of things like Netflix and Hulu and Apple TV. I'll turn them on for a while and then I unsubscribe for a while, just because I would be sitting on the couch all the time. So lately I found myself sitting on the couch in the evenings, bored out of my mind, watching some kind of rerun or something I've seen before or something I'm really not interested in. And I thought, why am I doing that? And then I kind of traced it back, thinking about what did it look like when I was growing up. And my mother basically would sit on the couch and smoke cigarettes and finish some handwork. We sewed all our own clothes. She finished some handwork, maybe a hem or something, doing something with a needle and thread. Or she'd just sit there and twiddle her toes and watch TV. And that was the way I got acclimated to having relaxation time. Well, that is ingrained in my cells because that's what I grew up with, but that's not what I want now. If I do that now, I'm pretty much writing my own death sentence. Did you know that excessive sitting on the couch is worse for you than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day? Like, sitting is deadly. So movement is important. I've seen one of my friends who just completely shut down during COVID, was terrified of the germs, was terrified of going outside of her house. She sat on her couch. She was an active 85-year-old before then. And now she's just kind of morphed into this barely movable human being because her muscles have just atrophied and her brain has atrophied, and it's just really sped up that aging process, and you can see it right in front of you. So that's motivation for me. What do you know about yourself? Really think about it. Like, just start paying attention to yourself as much as you can. And I know sometimes I get started on giving you lots and lots of questions, but just to get your mind rolling on things that you don't normally think about, that are habits that maybe you can shift at this point in your life and give yourself a whole different perspective. Another thing about dating yourself that takes true grit is making a life for yourself. I have made a life for myself. I had a few friends that mostly lived in Durango, 20 miles away from here. And I knew a few people here. My two sons live here. They're very busy. I don't see them very often, but they live close. I didn't intentionally come to live with them. I came to live because I love this part of the country. And this is where it's home for me. I feel the best for myself, and this is where I wanted to be. And when I say it takes true grit to make a life for yourself, it really does. It took a long time. And then I had the little break of COVID, and everything's different now than it was before COVID in little ways, things that we're getting used to, but we didn't used to. Like remote work, that's pretty much a given now that it's available. Making a life for yourself. That means being involved. So I have volunteered in different ways. I volunteered for a food pantry. Didn't get me around the right kind of people. I didn't really feel like I was really contributing in enough ways to make my time worth it for me. I'm a member of the town council. That's not fun. It's really not fun at all. I'm getting lots and lots of practice with people who don't like me, which is kind of a good thing, especially at this age. You just get used to saying, hey, everybody's got their own opinion. You got to deal with it. You just have to deal with it. You're not going to change people. So you just pick and choose who you want to be around. Some things you don't get to pick and choose. So that's not very much fun, but I made a commitment. I'm going to stick with it. I feel like I'm making some progress in a way that I can look at it, that it's positive for my life. And it is great growth opportunities in dealing with people that don't see things the same way I do. I'll be glad when it's over. But there's lots of other ways that I've made my life very enjoyable and expanded it. It just takes a long time, and it takes a lot of self-talk about if this is what you want, this is what you have to do for it. And a lot of us aren't good about talking to people, knowing when to keep our mouth shut, knowing when to open it, knowing what to say, knowing what not to say. So all those things get wrapped into what kind of life do you want for yourself? Because you're pretty much sedentary at this point. Unless you go to a nursing home or you go live with a relative, which are all options, or move to something smaller. I'd really like to move to something smaller, but the market has changed so much, and I have too many things set in place that I really don't want to deal with changing. That part of my life is set. So what kind of things do you want to change? What do you still want to do? Just because you're a senior citizen, I know it's hard to believe with as much as society shoves it down our throat that we're invisible, useless, worthless, something we have to deal with. We are valuable. And one of my friends down at the senior center here in Bayfield, which is really an active activity place, it's just great. There's all kinds of things going on all the time. We meet for lunch 2 times a week. One of my friends at the table said, yes, we're all invisible. And when we come down here and we have lunch together and there's 60 or 70 of us, then we're all visible together, and we're hoping that we form some droplet of visibility that people will see us and recognize us. Probably not going to happen, but we can act different ways because we're invisible. We can know that people aren't paying attention to us, so we really don't need to give our opinion on everything. That'll make it a lot easier to make friends. I know it's in our nature, but sometimes our opinion isn't helpful to the conversation or to the friendship. So think about the things you want to change and the things you want to keep in your life. And then finally, for me, I know a lot of days I am approaching 65. I'm getting ready to sign up for Medicare. Oh my gosh, how did I get here? Medicare? Seriously? I am not that old, but I am. And it doesn't matter what we feel like on the inside. People look at us and they say, invisible, worthless, need care, need assistance, whatever. We still have to maintain our value on the planet. We are not dead yet. We have a mission here. And don't make it sound like it's your passion or your mission or your purpose. Just what do you want to do? What is one big goal you'd like to accomplish before you leave the earth? In other words, what's your legacy? Is it being involved in the community? Is it, and I don't mean like money and finances and all those things. I mean like the little things in your house. Like, are you going to leave a house full of junk for your kids to clean out? That's a legacy. Are you going to leave everything nice and neat and orderly like my mother did before she left the planet, where she had all of her finances done, she had her house ready to go on the market, she had all of her drawers cleaned out, there was hardly anything in the house? Which way are you going to go? What's your legacy in that? What's your legacy with your kids? I hear so many people that say, I'd really like to write down some of my memories with my kids or share them. Or I didn't ask the questions I wanted to my parents before they left the planet. What questions did you want to ask them? Maybe you can answer those questions for your kids. Now, your kids are not interested in hearing them right now, probably. Mine aren't. But I know with my mother, after she passed, I had so many more questions than I did before. Maybe I was afraid to ask them. Some of those things some of those things we want our kids to know or we want to share with our kids that it's not the right time now, don't just forget about it. Go and get yourself a cheap journal and write it down. Put some old photos in it. I have old photos of my family and my brothers and sisters growing up. I'm just going to write some stories that go with them. They don't have to be published. Nothing needs to happen to them. Just write them down. And if they throw them out, they throw them out. What are you doing? You can't take a little bit of time every other day or every day, 15, 20 minutes to write down a story or something you want to tell your kids, something you've learned. What's your legacy? What do you want to leave do you have a hobby or do you have a passion? I wrote a book. It's called Coach Life. When I was living in a motorhome for 4 years by myself and traveling around the country, I had no idea what I was doing. Just bought a 32-foot motorhome, towed my car behind it, never did that. I mean, I towed some horse trailers and stuff. Wasn't completely ignorant, but certainly didn't know anything about motorhomes and all that went with them. But I did that. I wrote the book. I got it done. It's, as far as publishing standards, it's not that great. The thing is, I got the book done, and it's something that will live on past me. You don't have to write your memories in a book. It can be a handwritten journal. I have my mother's journals. I love reading through them. There's other legacies. Do you like to cook? What's your favorite meal? Here I go with the questions again. Is there some kind of family meal or some kind of tradition that you would like to pass down? Oh, and just a word about traditions. I heard the other day, traditions are beliefs that dead people lay on you from the grave. Just food for thought. Maybe I'll just leave you with that. So there you have it. 3 things to think about. Dating yourself. Also, creating the rest of your life, because that's really what you're doing. You're just dating yourself instead of dating somebody next to you. Hey, thanks for visiting with me today. Did you subscribe? Please leave some comments. Come back for more. Thanks for joining the conversation. Bye.